Do the Maharashtra and Haryana elections suggest that regional parties are losing ground to national parties? And is the BJP fast emerging as the dominant national party in the country? In part 2, we discuss this emerging turn in Indian politics and try and see what the developing future looks like. But first, the Congress party's decision to sack Shashi Tharoor as a spokesperson for allegedly praising Narendra Modi may have been an extreme step, but many would say it's not surprising. For the last 3 months, the party has found little to praise in the Prime Minister, but has been frequent and outspoken in its criticism. It's been dismissive of his Independence Day speech, as well as his visits to Japan and America, which the press and public opinion had often widely acclaimed. So does the Congress party have a Modi phobia? That's the first debate tonight. And now joining me to discuss the Congress party's attitude to Narendra Modi is Congress spokesperson and MP Rajiv Gowda, BJP MP Chandan Mitra, a senior fellow from Shivnadar University and the former editor of The Hindu, Siddharth Vardarajan, and the opinion editor of the Indian Express, Vandita Mishra. Mr. Gowda, since May, when Mr. Modi took over as Prime Minister, I can't think of an occasion when Congress has approved of anything Mr. Modi has said or done. And now, most recently, you've removed Shashi Tharoor as spokesperson for allegedly praising Mr. Modi. So let me ask you bluntly, does Congress have a Modi phobia, or can you justify this blanket disapproval?
The Congress is now in the opposition, Karan, and our role is to play the role of a constructive opposition. Therefore, we are not going gaga over everything the way the media does. We are quite restrained in the way we are looking at the facts, and many a time we have been quite constructive. We've said, look, here is a situation where the government is continuing the good programs that we've launched, and so we're happy that these kinds of programs are continuing and that India continues to be on a path to growth and development. So our role has not been to be phobic or hostile to any single person, but to be a constructive opposition, and that's really what what you've seen in the last few months.
Chandan Mitra, before I bring in my independent guests who are well-known journalists, let me ask you, how does the BJP view Congress's attitude to Mr. Modi? Do you see it as something verging on phobia, as I was suggesting a moment ago to Mr. Gowda, or would you accept Mr. Gowda's answer, this is normal, par for the course opposition politics?
Well, Karan, I think to begin with, I must compliment you for putting today's subject of discussion so succinctly and appropriately. Judging by the way the Congress has kind of tried to run down everything, even on the issue of the LOC violations in Jammu and Kashmir, to what happened on our northern frontier, to Mr. Modi's absolutely resoundingly successful visits to Japan and US, the Congress is being so churlish. They have just not been able to digest that they are not in power and that they have to live with this reality. And then finally, even on a program like Clean India, in which Mr. Modi went out of his way to appoint a congressman because of his public profile, Mr. Shashi Tharoor, to be an ambassador of that Swachh Bharat campaign, the Congress reacted by sacking him from the post of spokesperson. If this is not phobia, I don't know what else is.
Let's, Siddharth Vardarajan, take a couple of examples to see whether, in fact, Mr. Gowda is right in suggesting this is normal, par for the course politics, or whether Chandan is right in saying this is phobia. Let's begin with Mr. Modi's Independence Day speech from the ramparts of the Red Fort, which got a lot of praise both from the media and particularly from public opinion. Kapil Sibal, on the other hand, dismissed it within 24 hours as just sound bites. He said it lacked substance. Do you think that was the right comment, or do you think it was perhaps a little jaundiced?
I think this kind of knee-jerk response from the Congress may well be par for the course as far as an opposition party is concerned. But it's not clever politics. Because when you've been so resoundingly defeated in the election and you have to find a strategy to deal with what is really a qualitatively new phenomenon in Indian politics, right, which is a highly personality-centric government centralized around the individual appeal or cult of Narendra Modi, you need a much more sophisticated approach towards the policies that he follows or the speeches that he makes. So it's simply running down what he says without getting into the specifics is, to my mind, very, very bad politics. And I don't think it cuts any ice with the public at large. And I think it gives an easy handle to the BJP to say, look, what kind of an irresponsible opposition is this? So I think that the Congress party has often even done a U-turn. I know you're going to give other examples, but I think their response to the way in which the incursion Ladakh was handled, for example, where they were almost egging the Modi government on to be more aggressive and to escalate the situation. It's, to my mind, verged on irresponsible. And I don't think this is what an opposition party ought to be doing. Okay. It's a different matter that the BJP did the same thing back in the day, but surely the Congress, which criticized them then, ought to be doing the same thing now.
Vandita Mishra, two of Mr. Modi's major policies were announced in that Independence Day speech. I'm referring to Come Make in India and the Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana. Now, Kapil Sibal said, literally within 24 hours, that Come Make in India was nothing but the redressing up of Congress's policies to boost manufacturing in India, and of the Jan Dhan Yojana, he dismissed it by saying it was probably unaffordable. Since then, in fact, both policies have attracted enormous praise, first from industrialists and then from ordinary people. So do you think that instinctive desire to dismiss was the right one from an opposition, or should they have been a bit more reflective and thoughtful and waited?
I think the Congress predicament is essentially made up of the fact that Mr. Modi, even as he seeks to redefine governance, has also redefined the role of the opposition or of adversarial politics in this country. This is a man who is blatantly and outrightly and with great flair and flamboyance also stealing the Congress's own schemes, copying them, appropriating its icons, and also, most importantly, trying to occupy a kind of a ground, a can-do kind of a ground. Now, the opposition to a can-do plank cannot be, you cannot do. The opposition to a can-do plank must be, here is how you can do it better. And the Congress is clearly not rising up to that intellectual challenge. The Congress, in fact, is, as Siddharth said, reacting in knee-jerk ways with a lack of sophistication, because it doesn't seem to have thought out what it means to be an opposition in the time of Modi.
Let me illustrate what you've just heard from Vandita Mishra, Mr. Gowda, by talking about the enormous stress Mr. Modi has been laying on cleanliness, on sanitation and toilets, which in a sense culminated with the Swachh Bharat campaign. Now, this is something that's resonated with ordinary Indians because it actually echoes something that they feel in their own lives. But your party scoffed at it, calling it first tokenism. Many congressmen, although not in public, but certainly quite obviously in private, have even mocked the image of the Prime Minister carrying a jharu. I put it to you that the danger you run is that your critical response may not reflect the way the Indian people think. And whereas you think you're scoring points of Mr. Modi, you may actually be foot-faulting yourself with the Indian people.
Karan, essentially a lot of what Mr. Modi is doing is adding a marketing gloss to programs and policies that we have already put in place. If you go to Make in India's website, you will see the policy decisions, and you click on that and you will find that the policy documents that are uploaded on the website are those of the UPA government. It is, we came up with a national manufacturing policy, and essentially this is now adding the marketing gloss. Mr. Modi has been amazingly good at adding that marketing gloss to everything, but that does not mean that that the programs didn't exist, and Nirmal Bharat Yojana didn't exist, or for that matter, financial inclusion was suddenly dreamed up, or for that matter, that, Japan's, the diplomatic, rapprochement here happened overnight. It's something that we've built up over the last decade. So basically the point is that we have no problems with Mr. Modi and his policies. We just find it funny when so much is made out of it, because a lot of it is just hype.
Let me point out
Mr.
Gowda, pause a moment and let me interrupt you. Can I interrupt you? Just pause.
Mr. Modi's talk, the high ideals that he brings up, he says we'll put a ban on communal violence and communal
I wish you'd let me interrupt you for a second.
Talk. and instead he appoints Amit Shah. They bring up love jihad in Uttar Pradesh. What is his
Can
talk?
I interrupt you? Can you not pause for me to interrupt you, Mr. Gowda? Take a breath.
When we criticize this, you call it Modi phobia. This is the role of not just us in the opposition, it's the role of the media to point out that Mr. Modi is,
Can I ask you to
is saying
pause
one
a
thing
moment?
and doing one thing.
Mr. Gowda, I'm glad you paused for a moment. I'm glad you're taking a breath. What I wanted to point out is that your attempt to portray Mr. Modi's policies as nothing but representation and perhaps better packaging of what Congress was doing or had planned to do actually misses the point. At no point in time did you get the Japanese to commit 35 billion in investment in 5 years to India. At no point in time did the Chinese commit to 20 billion. At no point in time were you willing to address directly American CEOs to overcome the inhibitions and reservations. Those aren't just recreations and redressals of Congress policies. Those are new initiatives that are yielding results, and which is why when you insist on portraying them as just the old policies redressed up, people feel you're being churlish. People feel you're not giving credit where it's due.
I gave him enough credit by pointing out that he's doing a great marketing job. Now the point is, the Delhi-Mumbai, that whole infrastructure corridor, that freight corridor, all that Japanese investment is something that was in place during our regime.
Okay.
You will see a similar thing in the Chennai-Bangalore corridor. So these are all huge, huge investments. There's already a wonderful platform that we've built up, and he's adding to that.
All
no
right.
problems, add more. India needs more investment. So
Okay.
we have no problems with these sorts of things. Just don't forget that we've also put in a huge amount of effort for building up India, and I would be happy if you were to recognize that.
All right. Chandramitra, let me put the opposite to you. Swachh Bharat is not going to get very far without the proper backup in terms of structural reform. Two things just in particular. We saw the Prime Minister, we're seeing him on our screen as I speak to you, sweeping the floor that day. But no one asked the question, what happens to the dirt he's sweeping? Is he simply sweeping it from one end of the road to the other? Until you have a system in place that can pick up the dirt we sweep away from our homes, all you're doing is moving it from here to there and no further. And secondly, what about addressing the problem of the status of the people who do cleaning? They're considered the lowest of the low. Until those are tackled, Swachh Bharat doesn't go very far. Now, I put it to you, Congress is right in raising those problems. Maybe their tone, maybe their tenor was mistaken. At times that led to a belief of churlishness. But the essential lapses, they were correct to point out.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. Although I would agree with you that yes, many of these programs do require a lot of dedication and motivation to be successful. It should not be a one-day affair where you just clean some dirt from one point to the other before TV cameras. If it ends at that, I would agree that this is hype and hoopla which does not get down to the real problems. But look at the follow-ups. Now, for instance, you missed out on another new scheme that the Prime Minister has launched just last week. The Pradhan Mantri Adarsh Gram Yojana, Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana. Every MP has been told to adopt 3 villages in his constituency, 1 to be completed by 2016 and 2 more by 2019, which will be model villages where you see the village will decide how to spend the money, but there are some mandatory things such as building toilets. So the idea is to create that consciousness, which I think Mr. Modi has very successfully done.
Okay.
With the Congress, nobody stopped them for 67 years that they virtually ruled. They could have created that consciousness. Mr. Modi is trying to motivate. He is an iconic figure. The fact that he is himself coming forward and taking part in these programs, that is a great source of inspiration. Nobody stop the Congress.
Let me stop you there, Chandan. Let me stop you there. I don't want this program to become by default a paean of praise for Mr. Modi. That's not what it's intended to be either. I want to ensure we don't tip over into that era. Let's bring up at this point, Siddharth Varadarajan, and in the context of the discussion we're having, Congress's handling of Shashi Tharoor. Would you say it overreacted? After all he said was that he was honored to be made an ambassador of Swachh Bharat, and earlier in an article for HuffingtonPost.com, he wondered if Mr. Modi's new tone, style and behavior suggested a new man, and his answer was, it's too early to tell. but the initial signs are encouraging, which is clearly not affirmation. So do you think Congress, all told, overreacted?
Karan, I think in the sacking of Shashi Tharoor as spokesperson, the Congress has captured everything that is wrong with the way in which it is behaving as an opposition party. To my mind, there's nothing that Mr. Tharoor said or wrote which in any way would amount to a political defection, the way the Congress is treating Mr. Tharoor. And I think that, for the Congress to not be able to recognize the clever politics that the Prime Minister is playing in trying to involve individual opposition leaders to burnish his own schemes without also acknowledging the role of the Congress party, I think there the party has a legitimate point, has a legitimate grievance. But this requires clever politics on the Congress's part. So if you're going to now kick out Mr. Tharoor because Modi singled him out for this, I think it's completely shocking, completely unacceptable. What we need is a smart critique of Swachh Bharat, if that's what we're talking about. And there's a very good reason why, the question that you asked Chandan about the Swachh Bharat requiring a lot more than simply wielding a broom. The fact is that it requires serious investment in sanitation infrastructure. And the reason the Congress cannot critique Mr. Modi for not even thinking about it is because the Congress in the last 60 years never invested any substantial amount of money in the sanitation infrastructure in this country.
True.
So if it's something you haven't done, you can't very well fault the Prime Minister for not thinking of that. But the fact is that is the single biggest weakness of Swachh Bharat.
Okay.
So it doesn't surprise me Congress can't point it out and is lapsing into these completely foolish self-damaging goals, self-damaging decisions like sacking Tharoor. This is completely outrageous.
Vandita Mishra, let's broaden our discussion and raise it perhaps a level. Do you think that the problem for Congress is that many people in India today believe Modi, the Prime Minister, is different to Modi, the Chief Minister? Congress doesn't like it. They don't want to recognize that difference because they want to continue to see Modi as they saw him when he was Chief Minister, as they saw him when they called him Maut ka Saudagar. And do you think the time has come for Congress to perhaps grit its teeth and accept that maybe people do believe Modi is different and Congress needs to accept that difference rather than resist the difference?
I think in many ways, actually, Modi, the Prime Minister, is similar to Modi, the Chief Minister. I think in many ways, he still casts himself in the role of the implementer of projects, rather than being prime ministerial and setting a broader policy vision and delegating responsibilities and powers. So I think that criticism may have substance, that he is still more a Chief Minister of India rather than a Prime Minister of India. But the Congress is not even making that criticism. The problem is that the Congress is not rising to the intellectual challenge of opposing Modi. The problem is that the Congress continues to be inert, passive, and risk-averse and unthinking.
Mr. Gada, what you're hearing from both Siddharth Varadarajan and Vandita Mishra is that you're not rising to the intellectual challenge of criticizing Modi in ways in which it would be A, democratic and helpful to the country, and B, in which you would actually score points. Instead, you're doing it emotionally and in a knee-jerk fashion. Do you think that, in fact, you need to reflect as a party more carefully on your critique and change it so that you actually score points rather than show yourself up as bad losers?
Karan, basically what we've seen is a honeymoon period for the new government. And in this honeymoon period, even reasoned criticism is not flying because nobody seems to be in a mood to puncture the feel-good factor or whatever it is right now. Now, the 100 days of Modi Sarkar, we saw more than 100 misdeeds. We saw a centralization of government. We saw an emasculation of ministers. We saw a part-time finance and a part-time defense minister. We saw numerous governance failures. And how much ever we pointed that out, it was not something that that has struck a chord. And we need to do more effort on that front. But our aim is not to score political points. Our aim is to ensure that governance is good in India. and we play the role of a constructive opposition.
Okay.
Anyway, this whole business of, please remember, in the case of Mr. Tharoor, that spokespersons are essentially their public utterances are seen by the public and by party workers as the party line. And so one has to be a little restrained and careful about what one says and does. You remember many years ago, the BJP sacked their own president, L.K. Advani, when he used a very perfectly rational, appropriate quotation from Advani, from Jinnah, in his speech in Pakistan. So, there's, this is something that, there is a party line.
All
and you need to ensure that you hold on to that. Yeah.
Chandan Mitra, there is one area where, in fact, Congress could have, perhaps somewhat tongue-in-cheek, made some very telling criticisms of Mr. Modi, and you're very lucky Congress hasn't done it. And I'm talking about the fact that Mr. Modi keeps changing his clothes. There were times both in Japan and America where he changed his clothes 5 times a day. Now, I know that clothes maketh a man. I don't deny it. And people like to see their Prime Minister well dressed. I don't deny that either. But is it fitting for the Prime Minister of India to behave like a peacock? And they could have actually made good fun of Mr. Modi, tongue-in-cheek, and that would have touched home. So you're lucky they haven't done it.
Given your own sartorial elegance, Karan, I'm not surprised that you counted the number of times the Prime Minister changed clothes. I didn't know, so this information comes to me as something completely new. But I think that there were many formal occasions, there were certain informal occasions, there were occasions which demanded the Prime Minister dress in a traditional Indian style, something that was a little less so, was Bandgala. So I think this is only appropriate. I don't know, I think maybe you can go back to the footage of other Prime Ministers, whether they changed their clothes, but it's so too trivial and frivolous a matter to actually engage our attention. And I expect only congressmen, not you, to kind of bring up these points because they have nothing else to talk about.
Well, I don't deny Siddharth Varadarajan
that is totally unfair because we have
just a moment, Mr. Gowda, Mr. Gowda, let me bring in Siddharth. I'll come back to you. Let me bring in Siddharth.
You've got to take that back.
Just a moment. Let me bring in Siddharth. I don't want this to be a tu-tu-mem between Congress and BJP. Siddharth Varadarajan, I accept that in India we very rarely discuss in public the clothes the Prime Minister wears. But if you recall when Shivraj Patil changed his clothes 3 times on the night of 26/11, he got a lot of flack, deservedly so, and I also accept that 26/11 is very, very different to the present situation. But do you think in their restraint, the press is being a little indulgent of Mr. Modi? That there are moments when the press could be critical, not just of his peacock-like behavior when he flaunts his clothes, but of many other things that he's done. And is the press being somewhat indulgent? And is the press's indulgence responsible for the fact that perhaps frustration is driving the Congress to appear more strident than otherwise it would?
Well, I'm not entirely comfortable with discussing these sorts of attributes of politicians. I think there I'm more on the same page as Chandan. But since you've asked the question, I would say that the media has been fawning over his choice of colors. So I think that where in the past we've kept off, the personal attributes of the leader, their family affairs or sartorial style, the fact that I think the media has been gushing over Modi's dress sense, and I think to that extent, where you have breathless commentary about designer kursas and the choice of colors, etc., it is odd that the same media isn't asking the kind of question that you've asked, quite frankly. And I think it's in a way part and parcel of the media's failure to ask hard questions. I'm not saying that a question about his dress sense would be a tough question. I think there are lots of hard and important questions that need to be asked, which perhaps aren't being asked.
Absolutely.
But I dare say that the failure of the media to rise up to the occasion and be critical enough and to be less starry-eyed, to be less adulatory, I think is perhaps something which is contributing to the Congress's churlishness. I think that if we did our job in a more robust manner, perhaps the Prime Minister's critics in the political sphere may get more ammunition.
Vandita, let me sum up our discussion by putting it like this. I can see that Congress has an antipathy or an allergy to Mr. Modi, and I would probably personally argue that's understandable given the fact that he has been taunting them with Shehzada comments and Congress Mukt Bharat for a long time to come, and then he defeated them very badly, and that must hurt. But even if this allergy and antipathy is understandable or explicable, does it run the danger of putting the rest of the country off, and therefore does it become counterproductive?
At the moment, it does risk becoming counterproductive. At the moment, in fact, the Congress is in danger of becoming more Modi-centric than even the BJP, which is a very difficult proposition by itself. What the Congress has to do is to try and rethink what it means to be an opposition in the current climate. With just 44 seats, it requires sophistication and cleverness in making yourself heard, in bringing the government to account, in putting up a good performance in Parliament, in keeping the government on its toes. I think that is what the Congress is not doing. The Congress is not showing any signs of risk-taking, for instance. The kind of risk-taking that the BJP did in Maharashtra and Haryana, the Congress let the BJP set the agenda in both the states. So that is the kind of risk-taking that the Congress needs to be showing today.
Very quickly, Mr. Gadhwar, because in a sense you've been in the dock right through the show, I want you to deliberately have the last word. Answer the advice you got from Vandita Mishra. The time has come for you to rethink what it means to be an opposition party in the age of Narendra Modi. She's asking you to be more sophisticated and more clever in your opposition, and I presume less emotional and knee-jerk. Respond to that, but please do it quickly because we're out of time.
First, I want to point out that the fact that we haven't taken those personal attacks, made those personal attacks about clothes, etc., is an example of how we are sticking to principles and policies in our discussion. We're not being churlish. The only issue in the whole sartorial case is about the fact that Modi will put on every kind of headgear except the headgear of a leading minority community. That is something to be noted. Now, the other point is that this whole issue seems to be Modi-centric only because the government and the BJP is only Modi. There is nothing else. Everyone are bit players, extras. And so whatever, when we criticize the government, it seems like we are criticizing Modi. No, we are playing the role of the opposition. And we are keeping track of every mistake and every goof up. And the moment when enough of them show that there's a difference between the talk and the action, the promise and the reality, that's when the tide will turn. It is a honeymoon period. So whatever we say and do today is not having the kind of impact. You'll have to give us a little time, Vandita. It will come.
I take that point. This is very definitely a prolonged honeymoon period for Mr. Modi, and you have to be careful about how you criticize him. And I do accept that it is a fairly difficult tightrope you have to walk between doing your duty as an opposition who's critical, but not offending the country because they may still be enamored of Mr. Modi. My thanks to all four of my guests for joining me.